Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This great discussion on this hearing. Certainly, we all want to ensure that everyone can have a roof over their heads, can choose where they want to live and at a price that they can afford. I've come at this topic in my lifetime from a number of different perspectives. I was a contractor for several decades, saw the impact of regulation, how that impacted prices. Then I was a township supervisor where we implemented new zoning that allowed for mixed housing and higher density housing. I'm in Lancaster in York County, Pennsylvania. We value the farmland. We try to protect that, but that drives up land prices, and the answer is higher density. And so worked on it from that perspective. And then worked on land banks in the state Senate. We implemented legislation that allowed communities to use them. And I authored a historic tax credit to ensure that we were using existing stock. So I have a few comments I'd like to make today. I think there's no silver bullet here. There's a lot of different solutions to solve this, but I think Democrats today are understating the impact of inflation. And I've heard essentially two things from them. One is they don't want to talk about inflation, and then secondly, when they do, it's blaming it on COVID. And in fact, they sort of derided Mr. Pinto, heard giggles from that side when he talked about what he thought was minimal impact of inflation, and Ms. Sanchez even said she hasn't laughed that hard in a long time. And so I actually pulled up a chart that I'll show you in a second here to see actually what happened with inflation during the pandemic. And this, we just took this off online. I had my staff print it out, and then I scribbled on it over there. This is essentially from the Brookings Institute showing the light blue is inflation, CPI overall, and the dark blue is housing inflation, which would have been holding steady at around 2 to 3% until COVID hit, at which point it dropped. So the shelter CPI during COVID dropped for 2 years. You can see that between my two lines there. So I think Mr. Pinto could perhaps be right here, that COVID itself didn't have the impact on inflation that we're talking about here. When did it go up? Immediately after President Biden took office, and immediately after the AARP or the ARPA was passed, the American Rescue Plan. And I think Ms. Sanchez maybe inadvertently said it exactly right. She said this was additional or less supply going after with more dollars competing for that supply, which is exactly what we're saying caused inflation in the first place. Trillions of dollars inserted into the economy, which is exactly what Ms. Sanchez recognized, and caused the kind of inflation that we're seeing today. Now, why is this important? We could sit here and argue, and I'm not intending to do that, but it's very important that we evaluate the response to COVID so that we don't repeat mistakes that have been made. And maybe the Democrats are saying that the administration got it exactly right. And in fact, we were derided just a bit ago by Mr. Pascrell about the economy after the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Well, I'll take our economy anytime over what we're seeing now. And if you don't think that the American people believe they were better off then than now, then you should be talking to your constituents, because I know my constituents love the fact that they had $6,000 more in household income compared to now when they have less money available, and that's the impact of inflation. I had a realtor in my district said, I've seen firsthand the devastating impact that inflation has on buyers of new homes. In the past year, we've seen an average increase in the base pricing alone of $50,000. Combined with the rising interest rates, and this is the impact of inflation, Mr. Pinto said we're going to have to get to 6%. Every time in history when we've tried to control inflation, we've had to take interest rates above the rate of inflation. So we're going to see a lot of increases. That's going to make homes unaffordable to so many people. He says combined with the rising interest rates, a new home purchaser can expect to pay an $800 or more monthly payment, or $800 more, which is pricing many buyers out of the market. So again, this is important as we talk about what is the next economic policy that this administration and Democrats are pushing, and they want to spend more money and raise taxes. It makes no sense. Look at the chart, decide for yourself whether it was COVID or whether it was the economic policies after COVID that had the impact that we've had. Maybe Democrats, as I said, are saying everything was done exactly right. But my theory here is that it wasn't COVID as much as it was how we responded to it. It's important that we get that right going forward.